And so we thought that there's a huge topic out there, imposter syndrome, that affects a ton of scientists, and and emerging or growing scientists, or pre-scientists, or young young people, high schoolers, everyone. And we definitely know that it, as science undergrads, we know it exists. We've seen it happen. How sort of what do you think is imposter syndrome's impact in people's sort of search for career happiness? How do you think that people should get over it, or try to mitigate it? Or do you think, for example, maybe universities should adopt something to make it happen, make it go away? Sort of, what are your thoughts on the issue?
So first of all, I want to just say, how often do I feel like an imposter? How often do I feel like a fraud? I've had it. I experienced it 10 years ago. I experienced it last year. I experienced it when I woke up this morning and prepared for this podcast. So my point is that it doesn't have to be just people who are early in their career. I have talked to Nobel laureates, CEOs who have imposter syndrome. And more recently, I was speaking to a colleague of mine who is running a multi-million-dollar scientific program. He is one of the experts in the world on this topic. And he actually said to me, as he was preparing for a presentation, that he was reading the literature, and he said, I feel like a fraud. I don't feel like I know enough about this topic. The guy has literally written books about the topic, and he feels like a fraud. So I want to say to your audience, guess what? We all feel like we're frauds at any given time. And I know your audience knows a little bit about imposter syndrome. It's the sense where we feel like we're an imposter and somebody's going to find out and unmask us. They're going to reveal us. And so what I would say to you is, first of all, I want to let you know that it is something I think about a lot, how to combat it, how to fight it, how to banish it from our brains. And I've even written about it. And you can even include that link in your resources that you're going to be producing. It's an article for Science Magazine. It was how to banish imposter syndrome, and your audience can read it for free. So how do I think? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I just said we're going to link that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So in that article, I actually give you a step-by-step process to get rid of imposter syndrome, but I want to tell you how I do it too, so to give your audience some ideas. So the first thing is we have to, number one, recognize that imposter syndrome is, and also there's and I say this with the astronomy community in mind, there's a binary syndrome as well too, that always is in collaboration and orbiting with imposter syndrome. And that is what I call uncompetitiveness syndrome. So that's where we think we're not competitive enough for a job or a fellowship or whatnot, and we don't apply. So in both cases, in imposter syndrome and in competitiveness syndrome, what we're doing is we are taking actions that are detrimental to our career health, or taking non-actions that are detrimental to our career health and to our mental health, our emotional health, and even our physical health. And so your self-care always has to be number one, especially your mental health. I would argue that your mental health has to be your number one priority. So the first thing on my list is number one, self-care, self-care, self-care. We are going to honor ourselves through this process. Number two, we're going to recognize that since these issues, these syndromes, they are not happening in reality, in the ether. They are actually a construct that we have created inside our brain. It's a complete fantasy of fake news. So we have to recognize that since it is fake, that we think we're fake, that we're not actually fake. That's not true. We can actually work around this, because as scientists, we deal in truth and reality. And this is a fantasy that we have created. So let's get this fantasy out of our brain. The next thing we do to banish this is we have to start thinking about the emotions that the imposter syndrome is causing us. We do this in part, again, to honor ourselves, and also to address our mental health, to make sure that we are safe. But it also helps to give us strength when we are potentially combating these syndromes in the future. It allows us to create a guidepost, in the sense that if I feel this type of anger, maybe I'm feeling like I have an imposter syndrome. This is something I can now solve. So it's like a feedback loop that we create for ourselves. The emotions that you may feel when you think that somebody is going to find out that as you join graduate school that you don't know anything, that you're an imposter, those emotions could be sadness and frustration, anxiety, depression, It could be anger. It could be a sense of, like dismissed, ashamed. You could even have some other types of emotions. Write those down. Write those emotions down. We need to know what they are. It's very important. It also helps to clear it out of the system. Since we're dealing in truth, we have to remove the things that are opinions. The emotions we are feeling are facts, but the thing that we are feeling the emotion about is an opinion. It's a perceptual issue. The final thing I would say, and you can read the whole article to get more details, and this is my favorite part of the process to get rid of imposter syndrome, is you get angry. You unleash your fury. But who do you unleash it on? Your brain. And you start screaming at your brain. And this is my favorite because I love to scream and I love to curse. I scream at my brain, how dare you speak to me, brain, like this? I'm Elena G. Levine. I worked hard to get here. I have intelligence. I have these skills. You will not disrespect me, brain. And I curse in a very, very creative way. So really just unleash that fury, because no brain has any right to ever speak to you like that at all. You are not an imposter. This is your moment. You do belong here. So I hope that's helpful.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to this podcast episode. This is Michael.
This is Sam.
This is Tommy.
And this is Joe.
If you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to leave a review. All of the show notes can be found either in the description below or on our website. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next week with more Everything Astronomy.